Hello Warhammer Explorers. Before we dive in, hit subscribe so the next transmission isn't lost to the warp. Every click tells me to keep building this universe with you. What if the Emperor of mankind arrived in The Walking Dead? The Emperor feels it first as a wrong kind of silence in the warp, the storm of thoughts and souls that fills his own universe. He follows that silence and sees a small blue world, where the dead walk and every living mind screams in fear. If this wound spreads, it can poison even his own age of war and shadows. So he chooses to send a shard of himself across the void. He tears will and light away from the golden throne, folds it into a spear of burning thought, and hurls it toward that broken earth, knowing his own people will dim. Above a ruined American sky, reality splits like glass, and a golden figure falls. The first person in Alexandria to see him is a boy on the wall. He is thin. He has a cheap rifle and tired eyes. His name is Ron, and he is only supposed to watch for walkers. The early morning sky over the walls is grey. The fields beyond are damp. Walkers shuffle in the distance, their clothes wet with old mud. Then the clouds turn gold, not soft sunrise gold, hard gold, blinding gold. Dad. Ron's voice cracks. He lowers his rifle and jams his finger on the walkie-talkie button at his belt. Rick, you seeing this? Inside the walls, in a half-fixed house. Rick Grimes hears the call. He is shaving in a cracked mirror. His eyes are darker than they used to be. He sets the razor down and snatches up his own radio. Ron, talk to me, he says. What is it? The answer is not words at first. It is a sound like thunder, but higher, sharper, like metal screaming. The windows rattle in their frames. Everyone hears it. Carol drops a pot in the kitchen. Daryl lifts his head in the garage, oil on his hand. Michonne, on the street, narrows her eyes and grips the handle of her sword. Out on the wall, Ron points with his free hand. The sky is cracking. There is a long jag of light hanging over the tree line, too straight to be lightning. Golden fire leaks from it, streaming down in ribbons. The air smells like hot metal and rain. Something falls from the tear. It is a shape at first, a dot, then a star, then a man, or something like a man, wrapped in bright armor, trailing a tail of white flame. Everyone to the wall, Rick barks into the radio. Now! The thing is falling fast. If it hits inside the walls, Alexandria is gone. If it hits outside, the shock could still rip the gates apart. The falling figure knows this. He is the Emperor, and the shard of him that rides this fire is very small, but still more than this world has ever known. He tastes the thin air, the cold sky, the dead minds under him, and he measures distance the way others breathe. He changes his fall. His will bites into this new reality. It is harder than the warp, heavier, like pushing a mountain. Golden fire flares around him as he bends his path. He angles away from the walls. He aims for the scrub field just beyond. The impact is still huge. The earth jumps, windows shatter. The sound hits like a slap. A wave of dust and broken dirt spreads out, slamming against the steel plates of the wall. A car alarm starts to scream and then dies. Ron is knocked on his back. He coughs, eyes full of dust, ears ringing. When the cloud clears, there is a crater outside the gate. It is wide and rough, its edges smoking. The grass around it is flattened. Several walkers that had been near the wall are now just ash on the ground. At the center of the crater, something stands. Rick runs up the stairs to the wall, boots pounding. Daryl is right behind him, crossbow in hand. Michonne follows, sword already free. They reach the top and stare. A giant stands in the crater. He is taller than any man they have seen, wrapped in armor the color of the sun. Gold plates curl around his limbs. His chest bears a two-headed eagle, wings spread wide. A long cloak, red as fresh blood, hangs from his shoulders, not stirring even in the rising wind. His face is bare. It is not young and not old in any way they understand. His skin is the warm brown of an old statue. His eyes burn with pale light, like two small suns. He lifts his head and looks at the walls, and every person on them feels that gaze pass through their skin and bones and into something deeper. For a moment, no one moves. Then, faint and ugly, comes another sound. Growling, moaning, the wet shuffle of many feet. The crash and light have called every walker in range. They come from the tree line, from the old road, from the fields. Dozens at first, then scores, then more. They are rotting shapes in torn clothes, jaws slack, eyes flat and hungry. They turn toward the crater and the walls of Alexandria like moths to a lamp. "Shit," Daryl mutters. "We got a herd coming in fast." Rick's hand tightens on his pistol. Inside the crater, the Emperor looks at the oncoming dead. He studies them with the same care he gave to demon hordes and alien swarms in his own age. He feels no souls in them, no spark, only a hole where a human mind once was. These are not demons. These are not true undead, bound by sorcery. They are bodies moving without owners, driven by some blind hunger. He does not know the rules of this plague yet, but he knows this. If these reach the walls, the small cluster of living minds behind the steel will die. He steps forward. His boots crunch on shattered earth. His cloak sways. He lifts one hand. Golden light gathers around his fingers. It is so bright the walkers cast long, sharp shadows. On the wall, Ron throws an arm over his eyes. Michonne blinks hard, but does not look away. Father Gabriel, standing near the small church, falls to his knees without meaning to. The Emperor speaks a word. It is not a word of this language, or any human tongue. It is a line of force, a pattern of will. The light leaps from his hand. It sweeps out in a low wave, like a shallow tide. When it touches the walkers, they burn, not like fire, not with smoke and flames. They simply come apart into dust and dark ash, their flesh turning to grey powder, their bones falling in on themselves. The wave stops just short of the steel walls. The grass at the base of the plates is only singed. The Emperor lowers his hand. Something in his chest clenches. He feels the pull, sharp and cold, back through the crack in reality to his true body on the golden throne. He feels the throne strain. He feels distant screams as ships at the edge of his empire lose their light. He holds firm. He narrows his will to this place. More walkers are still coming, beyond the reach of that first strike. He cannot spend his strength like that again, not so soon. He draws his sword instead. It is a long blade, bright silver, edged in gold. Rivers of small runes run along it, glowing faintly. The air around it hums. He moves to meet the herd. On the wall, Rick finds his voice. "Open the gate," he yells. "Glenn, Tara, get ready on the inner line. If they break through, we hold them street by street." "No," Michonne says softly, eyes locked on the figure below. "Look." The gate stays shut. Outside, in the churned dirt, the Emperor wades into the dead. He moves with terrible grace. Every step is sure. Every strike is clean. His sword cuts walkers in half. Heads fly, limbs fall. Each time, a faint flash of light seals off rot and blood before it can spray. He is careful, even now. He positions himself so that the walkers, drawn to the heat and sound of him, turn away from the walls. They press toward him instead of the steel. Those that slip around, he burns with short, sharp bursts of light. Only a handful get near the plates, and the sharpshooters on the wall pick them off. Carl stands next to his father, rifle tight against his shoulder, and watches the giant butcher the dead like they are nothing. "Dad," Carl says, voice hushed. "What is he?" "I don't know," Rick answers. "But he bought us time. That's enough for now." The fight does not last long. For a being who spent 10,000 years at war, this is nothing. Even with his power held back, even with this world resisting every use of his will, it takes only minutes. Then the field is quiet. Hundreds of broken walkers lie scattered. Most are ash, a few twitch, still trying to crawl, but their heads are gone, their jaws smashed. The Emperor stands in the center of it all. Dust clings to his armor. A small cut leaks thin, bright blood down his cheek. Some sharp rock from the impact, some small slip. He ignores it. He looks up at the walls again. Codex note: the master of mankind can turn the dead to dust with a thought, but every flare of power drags his far-off body closer to true death. On the wall, no one speaks. They have seen strange things since the fall. They have seen men eat other men. They have seen tanks, helicopters, even a tank covered in the undead. They have seen a man smash another man's head with a bat wrapped in barbed wire. They have never seen this. Rick breathes out slow. "Open the gate," he says again. Slow, weapons up. The main gate groans as it opens. Guns point out. Rick walks through them, pistol low but ready. The Emperor steps up from the crater. He walks toward the gate like a king returning home, each stride measured. He stops a few meters away, giving the people on the wall space to feel like they still have control. He knows this dance. He has watched tribes and kingdoms meet strangers before. He has done it himself, more times than he can count. "Stop there," Daryl calls from the tower, crossbow aimed at the giant's head. "I'll put one in your eye if you so much as twitch wrong." The Emperor looks up at him. He does not smile. He does not frown. "I will not harm you," he says. His voice is deep and clear. It fills the air like a bell. Rick swallows. "You speak English," he says, half to himself. "I speak every tongue that ever was," the Emperor replies. "I am the Emperor of mankind." Rick glances at Michonne. She lifts one shoulder, barely. "Your call." Rick looks back at the golden giant. "World ended," he says. "All the governments, all the armies. If you're looking for some kind of Emperor job here, you're late." The Emperor studies him. He sees the gun, the badge tucked into the belt, worn down, but still there. He sees the lines around Rick's eyes, the scars, the set of his shoulders. "You are this place's leader," he says. "Not by title, but by weight. They look to you." Rick doesn't like that, but it is true. "Name's Rick Grimes," he says. "These are my people. You fall out of the sky, swing a sword around, burn half a field. I'm grateful. I am. But you're not walking in here until we know what you are and what you want." "I want what I always want," the Emperor says. "Humanity alive. Humanity strong. You are my people, even if you do not know it." Father Gabriel appears at Rick's elbow, half out of breath. He clutches the cross at his neck. "Rick," he whispers. "An angel of the Lord does not speak like that." "Then what is he?" Rick mutters. Gabriel stares at the mighty figure. His hands shake. "I don't know," he says. "But power like that is never free, never simple. This may be judgment, or a test, or something worse." The Emperor hears every word. He lets them speak. He has learned painfully that pressing too hard at first can turn allies into enemies for centuries. "I fell here because your world cries out," he says. I felt the weight of your dead from far beyond your sky. Your plague touches even my realm, and if I do not stop it here, it may spread. So I come as shield and as knife. Rick thinks about that. Plague, he says. You mean the walkers, the dead walking. Everyone's infected. We die, we turn. That's how it works. I have seen walking corpses, the Emperor says. I have made them. These are not that. Their souls are gone. Something has stolen them. Something feeds on your fear and your loss. A shiver runs through the group at the gate. Sins made flesh, Father Gabriel whispers. Or something like it. Rick's jaw tightens. Can you stop it? He asks. The Emperor looks past him, at the houses, the small gardens, the children peeking from windows. His heart, which carries the dreams of uncounted billions in his own age, weighs these few lives against the storm he sensed. This place is a seed, he says at last. A small fortress of will in a dead world. If you stand, there is hope. If you fall, the rest will scatter and die. So yes, here I can make a stand, but not alone. Rick nods slowly. He takes a step forward and offers his hand. You help us, he says. We'll help you. But there are rules here. We've had our share of men who think they know what's best for everybody. The Emperor looks at the offered hand. It is calloused, scarred, stained with old blood and dirt. He takes it. His hand is huge, the armor warm, almost hot. I will honor your rules, the Emperor says, so far as they do not doom your kind. Behind Rick, Michonne lets out a tiny breath she didn't know she was holding. Daryl lowers his crossbow a fraction. On the wall, Ron stares with his mouth open. Father Gabriel closes his eyes and murmurs a prayer that is more question than thanks. Inside the walls, Alexandria stirs. People pour into the streets to see the giant in gold. Children peek from behind legs. Aaron whispers to Eric that this might be good, might be a sign. The Emperor steps through the gate. He feels each mind around him. Fear, hope, suspicion, awe. He walks toward the center of the settlement. This is Alexandria, Rick says as they walk. We got another place, Hilltop. There's a place called the Kingdom. There's some bad folks too. Saviors, scavengers, people who take instead of building. We've been fighting them, surviving. That's all. Survival without purpose decays, the Emperor says. Your kind once reached for the stars. Now you hide behind plates of scrap. We will change that. Rick bristles a little. We do what we can, he says. We keep each other alive. A noble start, the Emperor replies. He stops in the main street. He looks up at the sky. The crack he tore to enter this world is gone now, sealed behind him. He can still feel the thread of connection, thin and strained, leading back to the throne. He can feel, faintly, the dimming of his astronomicon, the psychic lighthouse that guides his ships. He breathes in. The air is heavy with rot and smoke. He is about to speak again, when a shout comes from the wall. Rick, a woman's voice cries through the radio. Rick, it's Tobin. You need to see this. Rick brings the radio up. Tobin, calm down, he says. What is it? The herd, Tobin says, voice tight. Big one. Bigger than we've ever seen. Whole damn forest is moving. And they're not just wandering. They're marching. Rick and the Emperor exchange a look. Show me, the Emperor says. They go back to the wall. Up to now, a god in gold has fallen from the sky, burned a small army of walkers to ash, and walked through Alexandria's gate as both savior and unknown threat. Now a greater storm of dead is coming, and the true rules of this new world begin to show. From the wall, the herd looks like a grey-brown river. It moves through the trees in a slow, thick wave. Branches snap. Birds burst into the air and flee. Tobin hands the binoculars to Rick. His hands shake. Rick lifts them and swears softly. It is not just numbers. The walkers move in lines. Not perfect, not like soldiers, but there is a pattern. They push at the same pace. They do not clog on fences or drift to the sides. Walkers don't do that, Michonne says, squinting. The Emperor narrows his eyes. He sees deeper than they do. To him, the world is full of ghost color and soft music, the low hum of living minds, the cold silence of the dead. In this herd, that silence is not blank. Something sits under it, a thin, wide net of will. Someone or something is driving them. They are being guided, he says, driven like cattle. By who? Daryl asks. The saviors don't do this. Doesn't matter who, Rick says. We can't let them hit the walls. We're not built for that many. We run out of bullets. We're done. He looks at the Emperor. You got another one of those light waves in you, he asks. The Emperor considers the herd. He could burn them. He could hurl out his will and scour them from the earth for miles. He could also rip his soul free of his true body, kill himself on the throne, and plunge an entire galaxy into blind darkness. I cannot strike like that again so soon, he says. This world resists me. Each act of power tears at my link to my own people. If I do too much, I will die there and here, and you will lose me as well. Rick nods, jaw working. Then we do it the hard way, he says, like we always do. They call a quick council on the wall. Rick spreads a rough map on a barrel. The roads, the big quarry, the river, the woods. Small marks show fences, choke points, places they've used before. We've done herds, he says. Maybe not like this, but close. We draw them away. We use cars, bikes, noise. Lead them to the quarry. Last time we used a wall. Didn't hold forever, but it bought us time. They will follow the loudest, hottest point, the Emperor says. Me. I can draw them. Yeah, if you get pulled under, we're screwed, Daryl says. You're big, but I've seen herds swallow tanks. We don't let that happen, Michonne says. We balance it. He draws them, we steer them. Never let them surround him. Use the roads to keep them in a line. We're low on gas, Aaron says. We can't run cars all day. Don't need all day, Rick says. We just need long enough to get them where we want. Emperor, can you, I don't know, help with that, without killing yourself? The Emperor studies the map. He points at the long highway that runs past the quarry. I will walk here, he says. The dead will come to me. Put your vehicles ahead of me with horns and engines, drawing them forward but not too far. When we reach this point, he taps the narrow bend. I will bring down the walls of the quarry. Stone and earth will bury many. The rest we can cleanse in smaller groups. Rick nods slowly. It's risky, he says, but what isn't? He looks around. Anyone got a better idea? No one does. Father Gabriel stands apart, hands folded. We put our fate in the hands of a stranger, he says quietly. Again. First the governor, then the leader of Terminus, then the saviors. Now, this. Rick hears him. We're not putting our fate in his hands, Rick says. We're putting him in ours. He's strong. We use that. But we don't bow. The Emperor listens to the words without offense. He has been worshipped as a god for 10,000 years, but he does not need these few to kneel. He needs them to live. Prepare your people, he says. We move fast. The longer we wait, the closer the herd comes. Within an hour, Alexandria roars. Engines cough to life. Men and women load weapons. Kids are pulled back into houses. Doors locked. Daryl swings his leg over his bike, the familiar weight of the crossbow on his back. Glenn climbs into the lead car, Maggie beside him, their faces tight but steady. The Emperor walks out through the gate before them. He does not run. He strides down the road, his cloak billowing, his armor humming softly. To the walkers, he is a beacon, a burning point in the grey world. They turn toward him as one. The plan starts. Cars roll forward, horns blaring. Daryl's bike weaves along the side, drawing off stray clusters. The herd follows. From above, if there were any planes left, it would look like a slow, terrible parade. A river of dead, a line of rattling cars, a lone figure of gold at the back, keeping the wave aimed where it must go. As they move, Rick rides in the middle in a truck, radio in hand. "Keep the pace," he says. "Don't brake. If they get around the sides, fall back to the inner route." The Emperor walks. He lifts his sword once in a while to clear a small knot of walkers that surge too close. His blade flashes quick and precise. Each swing costs him a little. He can feel it. This world does not have the warp, not as he knows it. It has a thin, hungry shadow of it, made of fear and loss and the sudden deaths of billions when the plague hit. Every time he pulls on his power, that shadow tugs back. He grits his teeth and keeps moving. They reach the highway. The herd is massive now, filling all 6 lanes and the grassy sides. Cars crunch under their feet. Old billboards scrape at their heads. It takes hours. Sun crawls across the sky. People sweat, curse, drink water with shaking hands. Once, a car stalls. The engine coughs and dies. "Glenn," Maggie yells. Walkers press in from behind, reaching. The Emperor sees it. He cannot use a wide blast. He cannot risk that strain again. He draws in a thin line of power instead, a narrow blade of light. He hurls it forward, and it slices through the first rows of walkers like a scythe, dropping them in a neat smoking line. Glenn and Maggie shove the car out of gear. They roll it down the slight hill, bump start the engine, and it coughs back to life. "Thanks," Glenn calls back, breathless, even though he knows the giant probably cannot hear. The Emperor hears. He feels the cost of that small act, a tug at his spine, a flicker of darkness at the edges of his vision. He keeps going. At last, the quarry looms ahead. It is a big wound in the earth, deep and steep-sided, half filled with stagnant water, rusted machines and old rocks. They used it once before, long ago, to hold walkers behind a fragile wall. The wall is gone now. The walkers trapped then are gone, scattered by past battles. This time, they will not trap. They will bury. Rick's voice crackles in the radio. "Almost there," he says. "Everyone hold it together. Emperor, you ready?" The Emperor does not answer at first. He is looking at the far side of the quarry. He can feel, faint and ugly, a pulse there. Something waits. He shakes his head and focuses. "Yes," he says at last. "Keep them coming. When I say, pull your vehicles aside. Do not look back." They roll onto the narrow stretch of road that passes along the lip of the quarry. Below, the drop yawns, filled with old junk and shadows. The herd presses forward. The Emperor reaches the far end of the narrow stretch. He plants his feet. He lifts both hands. He does not shout this time. He pushes. The ground answers. Stone groans. Cracks race along the cliff face. "Now!" the Emperor calls. Rick yells into the radio. "Pull off! Pull off! Go! Go!" The cars gun their engines and jerk aside onto the wider shoulder, just past the narrow section. Daryl's bike shoots ahead. The walkers do not stop. They shamble onto the weakened section of road, thousands of them, dumb weight on breaking stone. The cliff collapses. For a long, terrible moment the world is nothing but noise. The ground tears away, dropping in huge chunks. Walkers fall, arms flailing, mouths open in silent moans. Dust and rock explode upward. The herd pours into the quarry like sand through a broken hourglass. A few rows at the very edge manage to shuffle back to solid ground, but most go over. They tumble and slam into each other, crushing, breaking. When the dust clears, the quarry is a grave. Bodies lie in piles, crushed under tons of stone. Some twitch weakly. Most are still. Those on the rim are fewer now, shoved into broken lines. Alexandria's people, standing at secondary positions with guns ready, pick them off in small, controlled bursts. The biggest part of the herd is gone. Rick leans against the hood of his truck, chest heaving. "Holy shit," he whispers. Maggie slumps in her seat and laughs once, sharp and wild. "We did it," she says. "We actually did it." On the far edge, the Emperor drops to one knee. His vision swims. Inside his mind, far away, he sees a flicker of terror. His throne room, the endless river of souls that feed his beacon. He hears ship captains screaming as their psychic guide dims. He hears his own custodes, his golden guardians, shouting to each other as his body on the throne spasms. He forces his focus back here. This shard of him is shaking. "Are you all right?" Michonne asks, walking up slowly, sword still sheathed. He stands, slowly, armor clinking. "I am limited," he says. "I must remember that." "You saved us," she says. "The way I see it, you can be as limited as you want." He looks at her. "You misunderstand," he says quietly. "I did not save you. We saved you. You drove. You risked yourselves. If I had acted alone, I would be a corpse in that hole." Michonne smiles, small and sharp. "Good," she says. "Means you know how this works." They regroup at the quarry, then return to Alexandria as the sun starts to sink. Smoke trails in the air from small burns and controlled fires. At the gate, people cheer when they see the vehicles roll back in. For a moment, hope is loud. That night, in the big church that serves as both chapel and meeting hall, they hold a council. Candles burn on the altar. Their small flames seem tiny after the golden light of the day. Rick stands at the front. The Emperor stands to one side, looming, his armor catching every flicker of light. Father Gabriel sits near the front pew, hands folded. Daryl leans against a wall, arms crossed. Carl, Maggie, Glenn, Michonne, Carol, Aaron, and others fill the rows. "We saw what he can do," Rick says. "We also saw what it cost him. He ain't unstoppable. He's powerful. More powerful than anything else in this world, far as we can tell. But he can be hurt. He can be drained. He can't fix everything with a snap of his fingers." "Still," Aaron says, "without him, that herd hits the walls. Maybe we survive, maybe we don't. I'd rather have him than not." "We don't know what he wants," Carol says. "We've met men like this before. Not like this," she nods at the Emperor. "But close enough, strong. Sure they know what's best. It always ends with someone on their knees." The Emperor speaks. "I seek no throne here," he says. "I left my throne behind, at great cost. I came because your dead scream loud enough to shake the warp. If I do nothing, that scream will spread." "What's the warp?" Carl asks. The Emperor looks at him. "It is the sea of thoughts and souls that lies under reality," he says. "Every fear, every hope, every death makes waves there. Your plague makes a storm. If it grows, it will reach my people. They will die by the trillions. So we're like a sickness that can spread," Glenn says, "to your world. You are the patient," the Emperor says. "The sickness is whatever made your dead walk and stole their souls. Father Gabriel's voice shakes as he speaks. You talk about souls like tools, he says, like fuel. The Emperor's gaze turns to him. They are more than that, he says. They are the only thing that matters. Flesh is clay. Souls are the fire in it. Without souls, there is nothing. And yet you talk about sacrificing lives, Gabriel says. You talk about burning fields. You barely know us. How many of us are you willing to lose to save your trillions? Enough, the Emperor says simply. If that is the price to stop this plague from eating all of my kind across all ages, then I will pay it. But I prefer to pay less. That is why I stand here. That is why I speak instead of simply acting. Rick steps in. This is the choice, he says. We've had men who think like him before. Men who think they're saviors. They talk about big pictures and necessary deaths. They break people because they think they're the only ones who see the truth. He looks at the Emperor. You say we're your people, Rick says, but you don't know us. You don't know what we've been through. We don't serve you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The Emperor holds his gaze. In my youth, I tried to guide your kind with soft hands, he says. I hid. I nudged. You built empires and burned them. You learned and forgot. In the end, I stepped forward and took command. I forged an Imperium. It saved you and damned you all at once. That sounds familiar, Maggie says. We've seen that. The governor, Negan. People who think they know better than everyone. I am not a petty tyrant, the Emperor says. Maybe not, Carol says. But all tyrants start somewhere. Daryl snorts. Look, he says. I ain't smart like Eugene, but I know one thing. We ain't gonna win this by arguing in a church. We lay down some rules. He follows them. He steps out of line. We deal with it. Same as always. Only thing is, this time, if we have to deal with it, it'll be a lot harder. Michonne nods. Rule 1, she says. No killing living people unless we all agree it's the only way. Rule 2, no burning fields without talking to us first. Rule 3, no forcing anyone to worship you, or follow you, or whatever. I do not desire worship, the Emperor says quietly. I have more than I wish already. I desire order, purpose, discipline. Then you won't mind if we don't kneel, Michonne says. He inclines his head. I will abide by your rules, so far as they do not doom us, he says. Father Gabriel still looks troubled. What about mercy? He asks. If you find the people who did this, the ones guiding that herd, will you show them any? The Emperor thinks of Horus, his beloved son, turned traitor, bleeding in his arms. He thinks of a galaxy on fire. Mercy is not the opposite of justice, he says, but mercy without wisdom can kill more than it saves. I will judge when we stand before them. That's not really an answer, Gabriel says. It is the only honest one, the Emperor replies. The room is quiet. Rick rubs his beard. Okay, he says at last. Here's how I see it. We don't turn away help. Not anymore. We tried to do everything on our own, and we almost died, over and over. If he can help stop the walkers for good, we give him a chance. But we don't give up who we are. We don't let him make this place into whatever empire he had before. We stay us. He looks around. Anyone who can't live with that, say so. No one speaks. Maggie's hand finds Glenn's. Carol looks hard at the Emperor and then away, as if putting a mark on him in her mind. Michonne rests her hand on her sword. The Emperor watches them all. He sees something in them he saw long ago, in hunters with stone blades and in tank crews in old wars. He sees the stubborn will to live, the way humans clump together in small groups and call that clump the whole universe. You have courage, he says. Very well. We are allies. For now. The meeting breaks. People drift out, back to their homes, their watch posts, their small chores. Outside, night has fallen. The stars over Alexandria are cold and sharp. The Emperor stands alone near the wall, looking up. He reaches lightly for the warp. He feels the thin shadow again. He feels beneath it a pit. It is not like chaos, not like the howling gods of his own universe. It is colder, quieter. It is the absence of souls piled up high. It is the echo of billions dying with no guide, no belief, no path. He shivers. For the first time in a long age, he feels a sliver of fear. Something moves in that pit. A whisper brushes his mind. You left them, it says. You left your bright throne. You left your golden children to die in the dark. He freezes. The voice is not loud. It is not strong. But it is in his own language, and it knows where to press. He pushes back. I am here to stop you, he says, aloud and in thought. Whatever you are. The whisper laughs, soundless. You are late, it says. So many souls already eaten, so many more to come. Far away, at the edge of Alexandria's reach, in a small outpost made of stacked trucks and wire, a man named Scott sits on watch. He does not see the thing that steps out of the trees. It looks like a walker at first. It shambles. Its skin hangs in tatters. Its eyes are cloudy, but its head turns with slow, careful interest. His jaw moves, and half a word slips out. Scott jerks his gun up, startled. He does not get to fire. The mass of walkers behind that first one surges like a wave. They are not random. They hit the truck wall all at once, every hand and face slamming into metal as if pulled by the same wire. Bolts pop. The wall tilts. Scott screams into his radio, but the noise of the herd drowns him out. In minutes, the outpost is gone. Back in Alexandria, the radio crackles. Scott, Aaron says. Scott, come in. You there? Only static answers. Rick and the Emperor stand over the radio in a small room listening. Could be a busted battery, Aaron says, trying to sound hopeful. Rick doesn't buy it. Or it could be something else, he says. The Emperor closes his eyes. He reaches for the outpost. He feels only a smear of recent death, a smear that slides away from his touch like oil. Something is hiding it. They are gone, he says quietly, and something does not want me to see how. What do you mean? Rick asks. I mean your plague has learned, the Emperor says. It has grown teeth for me. Power scaling. Interlude. In his mind, the Emperor explains what he feels. These walkers have no souls, only empty shells, but the thing that drives them sits like a cold knot in the shadow of the warp. When he touches that shadow with his light, it does not burn, it drinks. His power pours in and vanishes, giving the enemy more to work with. If he pushes too hard, he will feed the very thing he came to kill, and it will reach back along his connection, gnawing at the throne itself. Rick looks at him. So what you're saying is, he says slowly, our dead just found a way to bite you too. Yes, the Emperor says, and that means the next battle will not be as easy as the last. Dawn comes grey over Alexandria. The air smells of wood smoke and cold earth. Crows sit on the wall poles and watch the people below move like ants. The Emperor has not slept. He does not need sleep like they do, but the shard of him in this world feels heavy. His duel with the hidden mind behind the plague has left marks. Up to now, the herd has been turned aside, the outpost has fallen in silence, and the Emperor has reached out to the unseen master of the dead, only to find that his own light feeds it if he missteps. In the ruins of an old lab, he faced a man whose body was a mask for the thing. Dr. Jenner's dead face, speaking with a cold voice, that called itself the Shepherd of the Empty. The Emperor burned that body, but the enemy slipped away into the sea of dead minds, leaving him scarred and unsure. He stands by the small church, watching the gates. Rick walks toward him, coat pulled tight. "You look worse," Rick says bluntly. The cut on the Emperor's cheek has not healed. It has darkened, fine threads of grey spreading from it like veins. "When I fought the Shepherd," the Emperor says, "its touch sank into me. When I pull on the warp, some of that shadow pulls back. If I burn too bright, I feed it. If I do nothing, you all die. This is the knife edge I walk." Rick nods once. "So what now?" he asks. "We can't just sit here and wait for it to come again." "No," the Emperor says. "I must seek judgment. I must ask my own throne how far I am allowed to go. That means a pilgrimage." Rick frowns. "You mean leaving?" he asks. "Not as you understand it," the Emperor says. "There are thin places in your world where the shadow under it is closer to mine. Churches built on old pain. Cities where many died at once. From there I can reach back to my own fortress, to the golden throne where I sit in my own time. I will not go alone. A few of you will come as witnesses. You will see what I serve. Then we will decide together." "Who?" Rick asks. "Those your people trust," the Emperor says. "You, Michonne, Father Gabriel, perhaps one more." He looks back at the church. "Your priest's faith cut the shepherd's claws," he says. "I do not know his God, but his belief gave shape to my light here. I will need that again." Later, in the church, they gather around a small table. A map of the region is spread out. Candles burn at the corners. "The place we need is here," the Emperor says, pointing. It is a mark on the map. A big city, once full of life, and now just another corpse. "Washington," Aaron says. "DC, the capital. We haven't been back there since before Alexandria." "There is a great wound there," the Emperor says. "Many died in fear when the plague hit. That pain has soaked into the ground. When I reach through it, I can step along the thread that still ties me to my throne. It will not be safe." Maggie folds her arms. "You go there. What happens to us?" she asks. "We just sit here and hope the shepherd doesn't send another herd." "The shepherd is wounded," the Emperor says. "It will need time to gather its strength, time to learn from our last clash. You, meanwhile, will strengthen your walls, drill your people, share food and guards with Hilltop and the kingdom. The enemy is clever, but it cannot be everywhere at once." Rick looks around the table. "Michonne, Father Gabriel, you two go," he says. "I'll go too. Daryl, you stay and keep things together here. Carol, you and Maggie run point on security. If we're not back in a week, assume we're dead and plan without us." Daryl grimaces but nods. "You better not make me run the place for long," he mutters. "Never liked meetings." Carol gives the Emperor a long, searching look. "You bring them back," she says, "or I don't care what you are. I'll find a way to kill you." The Emperor meets her eyes. "If I do not bring them back, I will likely be dead already," he says, "but I accept your terms." They leave the next day. The convoy is small but tough. An armoured truck, a van with cots and supplies, an old-school bus stripped down and armoured with plates, and Daryl's bike running ahead as scout for the first stretch before he turns back. Inside the van, they have built a rough medic bay. Rosita and Sadiq ride there, with bandages, scavenged antibiotics, and IV bags. They check on the Emperor's wound, even though it makes them nervous. "This isn't normal," Sadiq says, looking at the thin grey veins on the Emperor's cheek. "I mean, None of this is normal, but this is something else. It looks like infection, but it doesn't act like it. It is a scar on the soul-made flesh, the Emperor says. As long as I restrain my power, it will not spread fast. If I unleash myself, it will grow. If it reaches my eyes, this shard will fall under the shepherd's sway. Rosita shivers. Then don't let it get that far, she says. Outside, the countryside rolls past. They pass fields overgrown with weeds, cars rusting on the side of the road, billboards peeling. Every so often, they stop to clear walkers or change tires. At night, they park in circles, like wagons in old stories. They build small fires inside a ring of cars so the light does not travel far. Watches are posted. In one ruined church they choose as shelter from a coming storm. They set up the chapel. The roof is half gone. Rain taps on the exposed beams. Father Gabriel stands before the broken altar, Bible in his hands. The Emperor stands near the back, arms folded. You would speak to your God, the Emperor says, even here. I have nothing else, Gabriel says. I turned my back on my flock once, locked my doors, left them to die. Every step since has been trying to make up for that. If I stop praying now, I might as well lay down with the dead. The Emperor watches the few people in the pews. Rick sits near the front, hands clasped, eyes distant. Michonne leans against a pillar, sword across her lap, listening but not kneeling. A young woman from Hilltop Brianna hums a hymn under her breath. Faith is a weapon, the Emperor says softly. In my own empire, priesthoods grew around my image. They called me a god. I did not ask for it, but I did not stop it either. Their belief gave my armies strength in the warp. It also chained minds, made them kill in my name for reasons I did not choose. Is that why you keep saying you're not a god? Gabriel asks. Because you're afraid of what people do to gods? I am afraid of what people do to each other when they think their cruelty is holy, the Emperor says. Yet I cannot deny faith's power. Your prayer struck the shepherd when my own light slid off it. You gave my will shape in this thin world. Gabriel looks up at the broken cross. I don't know what's right anymore, he says. The book says mercy. The world says kill or die. You say sacrifice a few to save a many I can't even see. There is no rule that fits every moment. No, the Emperor says. There is only one rule that never breaks. Humanity must live. Everything else bends around that. That's your motto, Gabriel says. Humanity above all. Yes, the Emperor says. It is why I built an empire of 1,000,000 worlds. It is why I cut down alien gods. It is why I killed my own son when he tried to tear it all apart. I will do anything to keep our kind from extinction. Gabriel shudders. Anything is a dangerous word, he says. It can excuse horrors. I know, the Emperor says. That is why I seek judgment now, to learn where anything must stop. The storm passes. They move on. As they near the broken ring road around Washington, the air grows heavier. The sky is lower, the clouds darker. The smell of rot is thick. Walker herds move in the distance on their own paths, driven by needs the living cannot see. Some turn their heads as the convoy passes, but most keep shuffling in other directions. The shepherd's doing, Michonne says. It's organizing them, keeping them in place. Like pieces on a board, Rick says. They park the vehicles under an overpass to plan their final approach. We go in on foot from here, Rick says. Too many cars, too little room. We make for the mall, open space, good sidelines. That's where you get your door, right? He asks the Emperor. Yes, the Emperor says. The great white obelisk you call the Washington Monument stands at a point of power now. It remembers crowds, speeches, fear, panic. That pain has soaked into it. Of course, Michonne mutters. Even the monuments are haunted now. They check weapons. They check packs. Then they walk into the dead capital. The city is a forest of stone and glass. Some buildings are burned out shells. Others have trees growing from windows. Cars jam the streets in frozen lines. Walkers wander between them, slow and aimless. The Emperor walks at the center of the group. He does not draw his sword. Nearby walkers turn their heads toward him, sniff, then drift away. "Why aren't they coming at us?" Rick asks. "They smell the shepherd on me," the Emperor says. "They think I am part of its storm. They will not touch me unless I strike first." "That's useful," Michonne says. "Creepy, but useful." They reach the mall by late afternoon. The grass is waist-high and grey. The reflecting pool is a long, foul puddle. The monument rises above them, pale stone streaked with dirt and vines. The Emperor stops at its base. "This is it," he says. "From here I can step along the thread to my own fortress. But the shepherd will not let me go without a fight." As if on cue, the air changes. The wind dies. The city sounds dim. Walkers stop moving. Every head turns toward the monument. Eyes that were dull and empty fill with a thin, pale light. "Rick," Michonne says slowly, "I think we just got noticed." The Emperor lifts his head. He feels it before they see it. The shadow in the warp thickens, pushing up through the stone and soil. A shape steps out from behind the monument. At first, Rick thinks it is the Emperor. It is tall. It wears gold armor. It carries a sword. Then he sees the differences. The gold is cracked and rusted, streaked with black ooze. The twin-headed eagle on its chest is dead, wings broken. Its cloak is made of stitched human skin. Its face is the Emperor's, but rotten. The skin hangs loose. One eye is a hole full of ash. When it speaks, maggots drop from its lips. "I am what you become if you choose wrong," it says. "I am the Emperor who did not hesitate to turn this world into a power source. I am the king of the quiet. I am your better." Myrophobia has come. Rick and Michonne raise their weapons. "Get behind me," the Emperor says. They do. The two giants face each other on the dead grass. "You are a lie the shepherd shaped from my blood," the Emperor says. "You wear my face, but you are its hunger." "I am an option," the mirror says. "Nothing more. You are torn, father of mankind. You want to save this small, broken world. You also want to save the bright empire far away. You cannot do both. So I offer you a path where you can keep the Imperium strong and still use this world. Kill them all. Let the plague eat their bodies. Catch their souls as they fall. Harvest them. Turn their pain into power. Your beacon will blaze. Chaos will shrink. Only one small world dies. Is that not a bargain?" The Emperor's jaw tightens. "At what cost?" he says. "To what I am." "You already offended your own ideals 1,000 times, the mirror says, stepping closer. "You ordered worlds burned to ash to deny them to aliens. You sent armies to die holding lines that did not matter. You let your sons fall into madness because you would not speak to them plain. Do not pretend you are pure." Gabriel takes a half step forward, then stops. He sees two gods of war arguing, and it rattles him to the core. "Stay back," Michonne says quietly. The mirror lifts its sword. "Stop crawling around the edge of sacrifice," it says. "Embrace it. Be what you always were. The butcher who kills for the bigger picture. Only then will you have the strength to break the shepherd and anything like it. Otherwise, you will bleed and bleed until both your worlds die." It lunges. The giants clash. To Rick and the others, it looks like a storm of gold and black. Blades slam together with cracks that shake windows. Each time they meet, a ring of dead grass erupts around them. The walkers stand in a wide circle, watching, heads tilted. The Emperor fights with control. He keeps his strikes tight, his power thin. He does not unleash the full sun inside him, because he can feel the shepherd waiting under the ground, mouth open, ready to drink. The mirror fights with abandon. It burns walkers by the dozen, laughing, letting power roar out of its cracked armor. Every soul it touches goes somewhere else, feeding something dark. You see, it mocks. I am not afraid to use what I am. You are a slave to it, the Emperor says, parrying a swing that could have cut a skyscraper in half. You feed your enemy even as you wound it. I keep my empire alive, the mirror snarls. What is one world to a million? For a moment, it drives the Emperor to one knee. Its rusted blade presses against his guard. His wound flares. Grey veins pulse, creeping a little further toward his eye. Rick's heart hammers. He wants to shoot. He wants to do something. But he knows a bullet will not matter here. Father Gabriel drops to his knees. He clutches his cross. Lord, he whispers, I don't know who is right. I don't know if this man is your tool or a test. But if there is any light that is not a lie, let it shine now. The Emperor hears the prayer. The warp hears it too. From far, far away, another light answers. It cuts down through the thin sky over Washington like a spear. For a heartbeat, the clouds burn gold. The mirror snarls and looks up. Not yet, it hisses. The new light hits the Emperor. It does not come from outside, not really. It comes from along the thread that ties him to his own throne. For a second, he sees terror. He sees the fortress world wrapped in iron and shield fields. He sees the Imperial Palace, a mountain of stone and gold. He sees the golden throne, a machine the size of a city, covered in cables and bone. He sees himself on it, a broken giant of flesh kept alive by screaming machines. His enthroned self looks back at him. There is no movement of lips, no voice, but a thought fills his mind. Reach me. The mirror shrieks. The light burns across its decayed armor, cutting lines of fresh gold through the rust. It staggers back. You think you can still tell yourself what to do. It spits. You are stuck between ages. You are weak. The Emperor rises. Perhaps, he says, but I am not alone. He steps back toward Rick and the others. The mirror rushes forward to strike again. The light from the throne grows blinding. Enough, the thought from his enthroned self says. The world snaps. For Rick, Michonne, and Gabriel, the mall vanishes. They stand on a bridge of light in blackness. Below them, endless stars burn. Above them, a huge shape looms. The Emperor's shard stands in front of them, still golden, still wounded. The mirror is gone. Or maybe it waits below, in the shadow, snarling. Ahead, at the end of the bridge, the golden throne hangs in space. It is not quite real. It is a vision, a symbol, a way for their minds to understand something too big. The golden throne rises like a mountain made of bone and metal. Cables as thick as skyscrapers hang from it. Gold plates cover its sides. Millions of small lights flicker on its surface. On it sits a figure. Its skin is grey. Its eyes are closed. Its body is pierced by dozens of metal spines. Yet around it, a halo of power burns. At its base stand warriors in gold armor, like the Emperor's, but different. More ornate, more ancient. They hold spears and shields. Their faces are hidden behind helmets. Beside them stand women in plain pale armor, with shaved heads and cold faces. Around them, the warp itself is silent, their presence a void. These are my custodians, the Emperor says for his guests. The guardians I made to watch my throne. The women are blanks. Their souls do not touch the warp. Their very presence kills psychic noise. Rick cannot speak. None of this makes sense. All of it makes sense. He feels small, like a kid in a courthouse, looking up at a judge who could decide everything. Is this real? He asks. As real as anything, the Emperor says. It is a meeting of minds, half in your world, half in mine. Take it as truth enough. The enthroned figure's eyes open. They shine with the same pale light as the shards, but deeper, older. The voice that fills their minds is calm, vast, and tired. You have overreached, the Throne Emperor says to his shard. For the sake of one small world, you have drained the beacon that guides 1,000,000 fleets. I have seen what happens if we ignore this world, the shard says. The shepherd grows fat. It learns to drink our light. It spreads along the warp at the edges. Sooner or later, it finds our worlds. This is not just about them. He nods at Rick, Gabriel, Michonne. It is about all of us. The throne considers. The custodians do not move. The blanks' faces are stone. The thrill of holy pageantry rolls over Rick and the others. They feel music without sound, banners without cloth, a sense of huge armies held ready, golden guards, fortress halls, cathedral towers reaching into storm. They stand before the supreme authority of an age they will never see. You must be bound, the throne says. If you act without limits, you will feed the very thing you seek to kill. If you do nothing, you waste this chance. So we will judge. The shard bows his head. So judge, he says. Rick stares at him. You're okay with this? He asks, giving someone else the right to tell you what you can do. The Emperor looks back at him. There is always someone above, he says, even if that someone is only the sum of what you once swore to be. My enthroned self remembers every oath we made for humanity. He is less kind than I am, but he is also less weak. I asked for this. Gabriel swallows. Then we stand as witnesses, he says. If you must kneel, we should see who you kneel to. The throne's gaze turns to them. You are small, it says, but your eyes are clear. You have walked through your own hell and kept some part of yourselves whole. You may stand. Michonne squeezes the handle of her sword. Good, she says. I don't kneel for anyone anymore. You have met a shadow of what he could become, the throne says. That rusted mirror is one path. It is not our path. We will frame others. Light gathers around them. 3 doors appear in the air ahead. They are not real doors, but their minds see them as that. Beyond each, faint images shift. Not yet, the throne says. First, we speak of costs. A pulse of thought spreads like a wave. In its wake, new limits settle on the shard. Power scaling interlude 2. In simple terms, the Emperor feels chains click into place. He can no longer pour raw warp power into this dead earth without it splitting into narrow, precise streams. Any blast large enough to burn a herd will also scrape his throne, shortening its time by years. Any attempt to touch the shepherd directly will feed it unless he uses human minds as lenses to shape his light. He cannot open more rifts between worlds. The crack that brought him here is the last. If he dies here, this shard dies only. The throne will endure but weaker, and no second chance will come for this world. The shard straightens. He feels smaller. He also feels, in a strange way, cleaner. I understand, he says. Then the throne gestures, and the doors open wider. Years later, when the story had grown into a kind of campfire myth, Carl would still wake some nights with the taste of that light in his mouth. He remembered standing on nothing, with Rick beside him and Michonne's hand on her sword. He remembered the golden throne hanging in the dark. He remembered the 3 doors, Behind the first door, he had seen a farm. Just a farm at first, then more. He saw Alexandria as it might be if the Emperor left. Walkers pressed on the walls again and again. The people fought. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost. In one flicker, he watched Maggie stand on Hilltop's wall, hair streaked with grey, rifle in her hands. In another, he saw Carol die holding a door shut, while children ran past her. Judith grew up fast and hard. Rick walked slower and slower. The shepherd still moved in that future. Its hand was smaller, its reach shorter. Without the Emperor to push against, it did not learn as fast. Most of the world died. Some pockets lived. The plague never spread to the Emperor's far empire. It was ugly. It was also simple. Behind the second door, Carl saw fire. He did not see years. He saw days. The Emperor stayed. He cut loose from every chain. He burned whole cities to ash, walkers and people together, before the shepherd could touch them. He reached into every church, every graveyard, every mass death, and ripped the souls free before the plague could eat them. The light from his body was blinding. In the far empire, the Astronomicon flared like a newborn star. Chaos gods screamed as their food was cut. On Earth, people knelt if they saw him. Those who would not kneel burned. In one flicker, Carl watched Rick draw on the Emperor. The Emperor did not even move. Rick simply stopped. His heart stopped. His breath stopped. In that world, Alexandria did not fall. Hilltop did not fall. The kingdom did not fall. They were empty. They became fortresses with no one inside. Only machines hummed, drawing power from the dead. The shepherd died there, eaten by a bigger hunger. Carl did not want to look at that door again. Behind the third door, the pictures were stranger. The Emperor stayed. Chains of light wrapped his arms and chest. He stood with Rick in front of a map. They argued. Sometimes they shouted. He watched the Emperor walk away from small battles even when people called for him, because the rules said he had to save his strength for bigger storms. He watched the Emperor stop his hand in midair, shaking, when he wanted to burn a herd off a small town and knew he could not. He watched Father Gabriel stand at the Emperor's side with a Bible in one hand and a strange metal symbol in the other, helping shape light into thin, sharp beams instead of wide waves. In that future, more people died than they would like. Fewer died than in the first door. The shepherd shrank. It tried new tricks. Sometimes it bit deep and won. The empire far away dimmed a little. But it lived. In that world, Carl saw Judith grow up underneath a sky that was not always full of smoke. He saw windmills. He saw small schools. He saw people who did not know the Emperor's name, only his symbol, and still chose to help each other when the dead came. He wanted that one without wanting the bad parts. He knew you could not have futures that clean. The doors closed. The throne waited. "Make your choice," it said. The shard of the Emperor looked back at his own broken body, at the custodians, at the blanks, at the 3 humans from a dead America. "I will not turn this world into a furnace," he said. "I will not run from it. I choose the third path. Bind me. Make me your servant in this place, under law." Rick's jaw worked. "You sure?" he asked. "You could go home. Fix things there. We'll do what we can here." The Emperor's gaze was steady. "If I leave, this world becomes a training ground for a thing that can eat my light," he said. "If I stay and take full freedom, I become what you have already fought. I have been both of those men, in other ways, at other times. I will not do it again." Gabriel's voice was soft. "Then you kneel," he said, "to your own word, not to us, not to me, to what you promised long ago." The shard of the Emperor sank to one knee. He did not kneel to the throne in worship. He knelt to fix himself to a line. "By my name," he said, "and by the blood I have already spilled, I swear, in this world, I will act only as guardian. I will burn no city when I can save a street. I will kill no village to feed a star. I will not raise my hand against human free will unless they choose to throw it away themselves. I will not make of this earth a farm. Bind me to this." The throne's light grew bright. "So be it," it said. Chains of thought wrapped tighter. The shard felt doors close in his mind. He felt limits settle like heavy armor. Then the throne turned its gaze to Rick, Michonne, and Gabriel. "Bear witness," it said. "If he breaks his oath, your world will die. If you stop him from breaking it, your world may yet live." "That's a hell of a job," Rick muttered. The throne did not answer. The bridge shook. The light dimmed. They fell. They hit the grass of the mall with a hard thump. For a moment, none of them could breathe. Washington's dead sky hung over them. The monument stabbed up into it, pale and tall. The circle of walkers stood where it had been. Some had fallen during the fight with the mirror. Most still stared, heads tilted. The rusted double of the Emperor was gone. Only a long, black scorch mark on the ground showed where it had stood. Rick groaned and pushed himself up. "Everyone okay?" he asked. Michonne said, rolling her shoulder. "Been better, been worse." Gabriel sat up slowly. His cross cut a small line into his palm. He did not remember squeezing it that hard. He remembered the throne. He would never forget it. The Emperor stood. For a moment, his eyes were closed. His armor looked different. The gold was duller, not weak, but less blazing. Fine lines of dark metal ran through it now, like seams. On his chest, the double-headed eagle was still there. Below it, new marks had appeared. A small circle split by 3 lines, like an old biohazard sign. A tiny 5-pointed star, like the one on Rick's badge. A simple cross. Not big, not loud. They almost looked like scratches. They were not scratches. Rick stared. "So," he said slowly, "what are you now?" The Emperor opened his eyes. "Bound," he said. "Still myself. Less than I was. More than I was." He looked at his own hands. "If I burn a city now, the throne dies years earlier," he said. "If I strike the shepherd without your minds to shape my will, I feed it. I cannot open new doors between my world and this one. This crack is the last." Gabriel let out a long breath. "That seems fair," he said, in a terrible kind of way. "Can you still fight?" Michonne asked. "Yes," the Emperor said. "Just not as a god, as a soldier." Rick nodded. "That's all we ever needed," he said. "Another soldier." They walked out of the capital as the light faded. The walkers watched them go and did not move until they were out of sight. Far under the city, in the pit of cold thought where the shepherd brooded, something shivered. It had lost its mirror. It had gained new shapes to chew on. The golden light that had burned it once was now laced with rules. Rules were doors. Doors could be opened. It began to plan. Months passed. Winter came. Snow fell over Alexandria, soft and cold. The walls got higher. The watch shifts got tighter. The Emperor did not live in any house. He slept when he slept at all, in a rebuilt warehouse just inside the main gate, surrounded by maps, scrap machines, and old books. He spent his days in 3 ways. He walked the walls and fields, learning every ditch, fence, and sightline. He trained fighters from Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom, and the other allied settlements in close combat, marksmanship, and tactics that hurt even his tongue to name. And when the rules allowed, he burned. The first time he used his power again after Washington was at the river. A herd had followed the frozen water, thick and slow. They had formed a long snake of bodies pressed together, slipping over and under each other when the ice broke. At their head walked something new. It looked like a normal walker, except for its eyes. They glowed faintly blue. It sniffed the air as if tasting it. Every time it turned, the herd behind it shifted direction. An alpha, Siddiq said from the trees. A leader. The shepherd's hand, the Emperor said. He stood on the riverbank with Rick, Ezekiel from the kingdom, and a handful of others. The plan was simple. We wait until they reach the bend, Rick said, pointing at the map. Then you hit that lead one. Not the whole herd, just that one. The rest we can pull apart with fire lines and traps. I cannot strike it alone, the Emperor said. If I do, the shepherd will drink my light. I need a shape. I need your minds. He had explained this before. Power wanted shape. On Terra, billions of people prayed to his name in 100 cracked ways. That gave his light channels. Here, very few knew him. Most did not think of him at all, but they believed in other things. We pray, Ezekiel had said, with a sad smile, to very different thrones perhaps, but we pray. Now, on the riverbank, Father Gabriel, a woman from the kingdom who still wore a tiger on her jacket, and a quiet man from Hilltop named Lance stood together. They held hands. What do we say? Lance whispered. Say whatever you believe, Gabriel answered. Just mean it. He closed his eyes. Lord, he murmured, we do not ask for miracles. We ask for a clean strike. We ask for enough. The woman from the kingdom lifted her chin. Shiva, she said under her breath, using the name of the tiger she had once loved. Watch us. Watch him. We stand together. Lance said nothing. He just thought of his children. The Emperor reached out. He did not pull wild power. He drew thin lines of light through their minds, careful not to burn. Their belief shaped his will into a narrow spear. He aimed it. Now, Rick said, as the Alpha stepped into the bend. The Emperor released the spear. It flew low. It did not light up the sky. It did not turn the whole river to steam. It was just a clean, bright line. It struck the Alpha in the face. There was no sound. The Alpha fell. The blue light in its eyes went out. The herd behind it faltered. They still shuffled forward, but the strange pattern broke. They clumped and split. Traps of oil and fire set earlier did the rest. Afterward, as the smoke of burning walkers drifted over the ice, the Emperor sat on a rock and breathed hard. Grey lines on his cheek had crept a little further. How much did that cost? Rick asked, sitting beside him. A little, the Emperor said. Less than at the quarry. Enough to remind me that every time I do this, terror moves closer to blind. Terror, Rick said. My world, the Emperor answered. The heart of my empire. If the light there dies, ships will crash, worlds will be lost. But if we do nothing here, this plague learns to eat that light, and we lose everything anyway. Rick was quiet for a moment. Seems like you finally understand something we've been living with for a while, he said. Whatever we do, someone dies. Question is who, and how many, and for what? The Emperor looked at him. Yes, he said. That is war. Always was, Rick said. Only difference now is the dead don't stay put. They sat in silence for a while, watching the last of the herd burn. In the spring, they built windmills. They used old blueprints the Emperor sketched from memory, not the giant towers of his age, simple wooden frames bolted to scavenge steel. They put them on top of the walls and on small hills. They ran wires between them and rough batteries. When the wind blew, lights in Alexandria and Hilltop glowed. People came out at night just to stand under the bulbs and stare. "It's not magic," the Emperor told the children, crouching to their level. "It is just work and patience. Remember that. If someone tells you power comes from nowhere, they are lying." One girl, 10 years old, with a scarf on her head and a scar on her lip, frowned. "Are you magic?" she asked. He thought about it. "No," he said. "I am a man who has lived too long, seen too much, and carries too many ghosts. That can look like magic, but it is not." "What's your name?" another child asked. They had heard Emperor whispered. They had seen the small cross on his chest. "The name I wore first is lost to time," he said. "People have called me many things. Here, you may call me Guardian. It will remind me what I am supposed to be." The children nodded. "Guardian," they said, testing it. The name stuck faster than Emperor ever had. He did not correct them. Not everyone loved him. In some camps, they cursed his name. When the first stories of the golden armored man reached far places, they broke along lines of fear and want. At a lakeside settlement that had never seen Alexandria, the elders sat around a fire. "The golden guardian," one woman said. "A man who falls from the sky in armor and burns the dead with his hands. That's not a guardian. That's a devil." "We could use a devil," a younger man said. "Walkers are getting smarter out here. Did you see those ones that pulled down the fence last month? If this guardian can fix that, I say we take the risk." "And if he turns on us?" another asked. "Like the saviors did, like every leader does." "He's got folks watching him," the young man said. "He's got rules." "Rules break," the elder woman said, "and men like that do not like being told no." They argued deep into the night. In the end, they did nothing. They watched the road. They watched the dead. They waited to see if the story was real. Elsewhere, in a burned town where the shepherd's whispers ran like cold wind, a different kind of meeting took place. A man with a scarred face sat in a ruined diner. 3 others sat around him. They wore scraps of black cloth tied around their arms, marked with a crude circle and 3 lines. "You felt it?" the scarred man asked. They nodded. "When he struck the Alpha on the river," one said, "it burned my head like ice. Then it was gone." "He used belief," another said. "He used their little prayers to aim it. He can't hit us straight anymore. The master made sure of that." "The master?" the scarred man echoed, smiling thinly. No one spoke the name Shepherd out loud. No one had to. In the corners of the diner, walkers stood pressed against the walls. They did not move. Their eyes glowed faint blue. "When we are ready," the scarred man said, "we will send them. Not as herds, as knives. We will slip them into his camps. They will bite his friends. They will carry a taste of the master inside. He will not strike them all at once. He cannot. His rules won't let him. We will wear him down." "And if he comes himself?" one of the others asked. The scarred man looked at his own hands. Grey lines traced his veins. "If he comes himself, the master will drink," he said quietly, "and I will finally be more than a leftover." They raised their cups of dirty water. "To the empty," they said. The walkers did not move, but somewhere far under the earth, the shepherd smiled. Back in Alexandria, life grew around the war. They planted more fields. They dug more wells with the emperor's guidance. They made small, tough radios that ran on wind power, using parts the emperor remembered from a dead age. On clear nights, Rick stood on the wall and listened to voices. "This is Oceanside. Crops good. Walkers thin. Heard about your golden man. Don't send him down here unless we ask. The last savior we had wore a leather jacket. This is the kingdom. One of our scouts saw another alpha near the old stadium. We're tracking it. If you have any guardian tricks left, now'd be a good time. This is a place we call the choir. We sing to keep the dead away. Don't ask how it works. Just know we're here. Sometimes the radios were only static. Sometimes a voice cut in once and never again. Each time, Rick wrote the name down on a rough map and pinned it with a nail. The network grew. It's like a little Imperium, the Emperor said one night, looking at the map. Don't start calling it that, Daryl said. Imperium sounds like taxmen and uniforms. We had enough of that when the world still pretended to be okay. Call it what you like, the Emperor said. It is the same idea. Thin lines of trust over a big dark. That is how humans win. Rick tapped one of the nails. Not as big as your empire, he said, but it's ours, and no one sits on a throne here. The Emperor nodded. For now, he said softly. He did not mean it as a threat. He meant it as a warning to himself. One warm evening, he sat on a porch with Rick. Judith played in the yard chasing fireflies. Carl sat on the steps, cleaning his gun. The air was full of small sounds, crickets, wind in leaves, soft laughter from another house down the street. This almost feels normal, Rick said. Normal is a story people tell themselves when they are between disasters, the Emperor said. It is never as stable as they think. Rick snorted. You really know how to kill a mood, he said, but you're not wrong. He watched Judith. Sometimes I think about that other door, Rick said, the one where you left. I wonder if it would have been better. Not for you, the Emperor said. No, Rick agreed, but maybe for your big empire out there. Fewer chains on you, more light for them. I don't even know what that place looks like, but I know you care about it. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. In that path, this world becomes a lesson I did not learn, he said. The shepherd grows in the cracks. It finds other ways. It reaches out along the same roads my ships use. We might win there for a while, but we would be carrying rot inside. I did not see the end of that vision. I did not need to. Rick took that in. You could still go back, he said. Break the rules, burn some doors open. You'd probably get there. Might die on the way, but you'd get there. I could, the Emperor said. You're not going to, though, Rick said. No, the Emperor said. I made a choice. You were there, you and your priest and your warrior. If I break it, I am not myself anymore. I am only what the mirror wanted me to be. Rick nodded once. Good, he said, because I need someone around here who knows what it feels like to make a bad choice for what you thought were good reasons. Helps to have company. They sat in silence for a while. Judith caught a firefly and brought it over, cupped in her hands. Look, she said proudly. The little bug flashed in her fingers. The Emperor watched it. Once, long ago, in another age, he had watched lightning storms over Terra and thought of power in huge, cold ways. Now he watched a tiny insect in a child's hands and thought of limits. Be gentle, he said. Judith opened her hands. The firefly flew away. The first time they truly tested his new mandate was at a town called Mason Ridge. Mason Ridge sat on a long, low hill, surrounded by fences. At least, that was how it looked on Rick's map. On the ground, it was something else. Walkers ringed the hill at a distance, standing still, like a necklace of rot. Inside the ring, people moved. They went to fields. They went to wells. They never looked at the walkers. They're using them, Daryl said, looking through binoculars. Walkers as a wall. Keeps raiders out. Or keeps them in, Michonne said. Through the glass, they saw a man in a leather coat hit a boy who looked too young to shave. The boy fell. No one moved to help him. A woman on the fence towers had a mask over her face made from a walker's skin. Whispers, the Emperor murmured. What? Maggie asked. A pattern from another age, he said. Men and women who wear the dead to move among them. They are not the same as the shepherd, but they will be drawn to it. Rick lowered his binoculars. Okay, he said. Here's the situation. Town full of people. Bad leader. Walker ring that keeps them in line. If we hit the ring, walkers pour in. If we hit the leader with bullets, his friends kill the hostages. If we burn the whole place, we save ourselves a lot of trouble, but kill everyone. He looked at the Emperor. What can you do? He asked. The Emperor closed his eyes. He felt the town. He felt the fear in the people who lived there. He felt the cold quiet in the walkers outside. He felt something thin and sharp, like a line of wire connecting the two. The shepherd had touched this place, not fully, not like the capital, just a finger. I could take the ring, he said slowly. A thin wave, just enough to turn them to ash. The town would be free, for a while. And the cost? Gabriel asked, stepping up. The throne would dim, the Emperor said. Ships would die in space. Worlds would go without guidance. The shepherd would drink some of the splash, grow a little fatter. It would be a good move here, a bad move there. And the rules? Rick asked. My oath says I cannot spend that much for one town unless there is no other path, the Emperor said. I have to try something else first. So we go in, Michonne said. We talk, we sneak, we break things from the inside. That will cost lives too, Maggie said. Ours and theirs. But it won't kill a world we can't even see. Rick nodded. Then that's the plan, he said. We go in quiet. We get a look at who's in charge. We give the people a chance to stand up. Guardian, you stay out here. The Emperor looked at him. You do not trust me, he said. I do, Rick said. Enough. But I trust me more for this. I know these people. You don't. If you walk in there in all that gold, the whole place will break before we've even said a word. You want to keep your rules. Let us go first. The Emperor thought about that. Once, in another age, he would have walked in anyway. He would have claimed the right of command. Now, he stepped back. Very well, he said. I will hold the ring. If the walkers move, I will keep them from eating you. I will not strike the town unless you call for it. Rick, Michonne, Maggie, and a small team cut walker skins and made masks. They moved down the hill among the dead. The Emperor watched. When one walker leaned too close, drawn by the heat of living flesh it could not see, he flicked a finger and turned it to dust. He took no more than that. In Mason Ridge, things happened fast and slow at once. They slipped through side gates. They saw more hits, more fear. They saw a leader who believed the circle of walkers and the thin whispers in his head gave him the right to rule. He talked about safety. He meant control. The people were tired. Rick saw it in their eyes. He had seen that look in his own mirror. He and Michonne and Maggie did what they had learned to do. They spoke quietly in corners. They pointed out patterns. Who got food? Who got beat? They reminded people that walkers were only one kind of death. By the second night, the first crack showed. By the third, someone opened a gate from the inside. Walkers poured toward the gap. The Emperor moved. He did not burn them. He stepped into the ring. He used his sword and his hands. He cut walkers down one by one in the darkness, a silent whirlwind of gold in a storm of grey. Inside, the townspeople grabbed what they could and ran toward the other side of the hill, away from the ring. The leader screamed orders. Few listened. When a small boy tripped and fell, a walker turned toward him. The Emperor was too far away. A woman in a mask threw herself between them. She had been part of the leader's inner circle once. She died with her knife in the walker's head and the boy under her. Later, they would not remember her name. They would remember the choice. By dawn, Mason Ridge was no longer a prison. Half its people were dead, half were free. The walkers lay in heaps around the hill. The leader lay at the bottom of the main street, his mask ripped off, his own people's hands on his throat. Rick stood over him. He did not enjoy it. He did not stop it. When it was done, he looked up at the Emperor, who stood at the edge of town, armor streaked with black gore, sword low. "You could have burned this place clean," Rick said. "Yes," the Emperor said. "But you didn't," Rick said. "No," the Emperor said. "Good," Rick answered. He did not say it was the right choice. He did not know if it was, but it was their choice. The Emperor went back to Alexandria that night with new names added to the list of the dead and new rules under his feet. He felt the thin satisfaction of having kept his oath. He also felt the sharp ache of every person who had died because he held back. That too was part of the job. Years rolled on. They did not mark them the way people used to. No calendars on the wall, no news shows, just seasons. Children who had never seen the old world grew up thinking of walkers as weather, something that came and went, something to plan around, not something to fear like a god. They knew the Guardian was real. They had seen him on walls, on roads, in stories. Sometimes he fought, sometimes he built, sometimes he simply listened. He did not age like they did. Little lines appeared at the corners of his eyes, but his body stayed the same. Inside, his wound crept very slowly. Grey lines never quite reached his eye. Every time he burned an alpha, they crept a little more. Every time he held back and let others fight, they faded a little. It was a balance he never fully liked. One night, years after Washington, he stood alone on a hill outside Alexandria. The stars above were sharp. He reached very gently along the thread to his throne. He did not pull power. He only looked. He saw terror again. He saw the golden throne. He saw his own broken body, more still than before. Around it, the custodians still stood guard. The blank still held the noise of the warp at bay. The light of the Astronomicon was dimmer, not gone, not bright, just enough. He felt other things along that thread too. New storms, new wars. The Imperium had not become kind in his absence. It had, at least, not gone blind. "You're still there," he murmured to his far self. "We're still both here." No answer came. He had not expected one. The bond was one way now, by choice. He closed his eyes and listened to the whispers of this world instead. He heard radios. He heard songs. He heard a child somewhere far away saying, "Tell me the story of the Golden Guardian again." He opened his eyes and looked down the hill. Rick walked up to stand beside him. His beard was white now. His steps were slow. "Can't sleep?" Rick asked. "I sleep when my people do not need me," the Emperor said. Rick chuckled. "Which is never," he said. "Join the club." They stood for a while. "You ever think about what happens after you?" Rick asked. "After me?" the Emperor said. "Yeah," Rick said. "Say this all works. Say we keep the shepherd weak. Say we build enough farms and fences and radios. Say my kids and their kids get to grow up learning how to plant and fight and think. One day, you're still going to be here, looking the same. They're going to start thinking you're something more than you say you are. A god. A devil. Whatever. How do you stop that? The Emperor watched the town below. Lights glowed in windows. On one roof, someone had painted a symbol. The double-headed eagle, small, with 3 vertical lines under it and a ring around them. The sign of Alexandria's alliance. I do not know if I can stop it, the Emperor said. Not forever. People make gods out of what they fear and what they owe. I can tell them not to. I can refuse shrines, refuse hymns. I can walk among them as a worker. That will hold for a time. And after that, Rick pressed. After that, the Emperor said quietly, I may have to leave. Rick blinked. Leave, he said. You just said you can't open doors. I cannot open doors to go home, the Emperor said. But there are other doors. Death, sleep. There may come a day when the best way to keep my oath is to take myself off the board, so no one can use me as a banner for something I never wanted. Rick shook his head. I hope it doesn't come to that, he said. But if it does, we'll handle it. We always do. He clapped the Emperor on the arm. Until then, Guardian, he said, you're stuck with us. The Emperor almost smiled. Until then, he agreed. Far from Alexandria, on a broken highway bridge over a dry river, a boy sat with his back against a rusted car. He was 12. He had never seen a real city. He had heard the dead before he could talk. His mother was asleep nearby, wrapped in a thin blanket. A small fire burned in a tin can, more for comfort than warmth. In his hands, the boy held a flat piece of metal he had found in the ruins of a gas station. He scratched at it with a nail. He drew a circle. Inside the circle, he drew 2 rough bird heads, facing away from each other. Below them, he drew 3 straight lines. He had never seen the real symbol. He had only heard stories from travelers on the road. Somewhere east, one had said, sitting by a fire like this. There's a town where the walls are high, the fields are green, and a man in gold armor walks on the walls at night. They call him the Guardian. Says he fell from the sky. Says he fights the dead and the men who act like them. Says he's got rules he has to follow. Funny thing to brag about, but there it is. Sounds like a fairy tale, another had said. Maybe, the first one had answered. But I met a man from there. He had this symbol on his sleeve. He had drawn it in the dirt. Said it means we stand together or we fall alone. I liked that. The boy had liked it too. Now he scratched the lines into the metal. He did not know if the Guardian was real. He did not know if the stories were clean truth or half lies. He did know that when he thought of that symbol, he felt a bit less alone. He held the badge up. The firelight caught on the scratched lines. Hey Ma, he whispered, even though she was asleep. When I'm grown, I'm going to find this place. I'm going to find the man in gold. I'm going to make sure he's real. And if he's not, I'll be the one. He pressed the badge to his chest. Somewhere, far along the broken roads, a radio hissed and crackled. Somewhere else, on a hill, a man in gold armor turned his head, as if hearing a voice too faint to be sound. He smiled, just a little. Under the earth, the shepherd curled on itself. Its plan to eat the Emperor's light had failed again and again. Its alphas had been cut. Its whispers had been met by other whispers. It still had billions of dead minds in its sea. It still had time. But it had lost one thing it did not know how to grow back. Surprise. The Guardian did not act like a god or a tyrant. He stayed smaller than it thought he would. He bent under rules. He made others bend under softer rules. He did not fall into the easy traps. The shepherd thought about that. In a cold place beyond human sense, something like respect flickered. Then hunger drowned it. It began to shift. It reached for men like the scarred one in the diner, for leaders with holes in their hearts, for anyone who looked at the circles of walkers and thought, I can use that. It still had teeth. The war was not over. It might never be, not cleanly, but it would not be the easy feast it had first imagined when the dead began to walk and the sky fell quiet. In a room in Alexandria, Father Gabriel wrote, he did not have much paper. He did not have much ink. He used what he had. He did not write sermons. He wrote rules. On one page, we do not feed the dead with the living if we have any other choice. On another, we do not bow to any savior who demands we kneel before helping. On another, we remember that our guardian is a man with an oath, not a god with a hunger. If he breaks that oath, we must stop him, even if it kills us. He did not know if anyone would read them in years to come. He wrote them anyway. At the bottom of the last page, he drew the simple eagle and line symbol. Under it, he wrote a single sentence. He had heard the emperor say it once, as if thinking out loud. He thought it was the closest thing to holy doctrine this strange age would get. Humanity must live, but not at the cost of what makes us human. He set the paper aside. He blew out his candle. Outside, the wind turned the new windmills. Light stayed on a little longer in more houses than before. On the wall, the guardian walked, listening to the night. Codex note: by mutual oath of the Golden Throne and the survivors of Alexandria, the shard of the emperor bound to the plague earth is a guardian, not a god, permitted to spend his light only to shield human will, never to replace it.